Aloha.
Aloha. I love that.
Aloha.
I use it for everything.
Isn't that
great?
So Becca, what are we doing?
So
What is
welcome, guys. This is our third, great episode of the Moms of Real Estate. And today, Stephanie Betters is going to take it away with our second pillar, motherhood. We talked about mental health last week. This week, what? You're going to talk about marriage.
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 This is what it's like to be a mom in real estate. Your brain has already left the building while you're still in it. Stephanie Betters. Take it away.
Yay. Well, I'm super excited to talk about this because, this has been like a thing, how to figure out how to do this and have a marriage and juggle everything. So I'm excited. To talk about it. When I was preparing for what I wanted to say, I was like, oh my gosh, like how do we do this in like 45 minutes? I have so much to say. And I'm like, there's a book in here somewhere. And I was like, wait a minute, that's probably a jinx, It was like, Rachel Hollis, no, shoot, So I was, don't write the book. I don't know. Anyway, so I kind of wanted to start out by talking about this entrepreneurial battlefield, because I think that really kind of sets the stage of what we're dealing with, So of course, this is like my opinion, and girls, you chime in because we haven't talked about this amongst ourselves, but I really feel like the entrepreneurial battlefield and being married and going through this and having, or even having partnerships and relationships through this is really special, because being an entrepreneur, I think, just in and of itself is kind of uncharted territory, right? Like that's why you're an entrepreneur, because that's why they call it an entrepreneur. Like you are on a different path than other people, right? So I think that it really kind of creates a special circumstance that sometimes is really difficult for other people to relate to. I don't know about you guys, but that's been something that's come up multiple times for me. Like there's just not a lot of other women besides our little circle here that I feel I can relate to. So I feel like I need my special people in this category. Like I need my moms, I need my, work friends and all that. And then I really need like other entrepreneurial women, or at least women that are dealing with an entrepreneur situation, this particular battlefield. So I'm excited to talk about this with this group and on this forum, because I feel like people can maybe relate to it. But this is just really uncharted territory in general, the entrepreneurial world. And I feel like what really makes this a special circumstance for marriage to deal with and partnerships to deal with is because like stakes are really high. Emotions are really high. There's a lot of financial distress, or at least stress. And as far as like putting everything on the table, taking risks, like there's a substantial amount of finances that get tied into this whole thing. And then there's such a high level of teamwork required. And I think that's from your spouse and your partner, and also like your business and your team. But of course, in this context that we're talking about is really your spouse and your partner in your relationship. So you really need like a serious team to like, the back and forth and everything. Like it becomes another level of teamwork besides in my opinion, a traditional marriage. And I think that with all that being said, what the real reward here on the entrepreneurial battlefield is to be the overcomer. And I feel like that just kind of comes up over and over again, because there's always like another level to break through. There's always another thing to accomplish. So all of the things that make this a special setup and a special battlefield really sets us up for that special triumph, which is, in my opinion, the overcoming, like accomplishing that together as a team. Like that's why I'm doing it, like so we can do it. And it seems like really simple, but like I'm just doing it so we can do it, so we can accomplish that thing. And I feel like all the stressors and things that are associated with this kind of uncharted territory and risk and stress is that feeling of overcoming and achieving, and the special bonus to do that with your spouse or your partner.
Well, and you and Zach specifically have done you've taken this entrepreneurial journey together, but you're both in the medical field together as well. So it's for you, especially marriage and entrepreneurship and work have been tied together a lot.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I can compare the two experiences. Like, it's different. It's still different, like a working family, like having both parents working, both mom and dad working, both husband and wife working is, I think, its own thing, dual income kind of deal. But then also like being an entrepreneur is the experience I've had with him and I running a company and him and I having separate careers, although similar, right? On the same track, totally different experience. As far as like emotional and like personal stressors associated with a risk, like I could just go and like, get a W-2 salary. Like that's pretty sweet as opposed to, trying to create everything and trying to create jobs and stuff. So definitely a battlefield. I don't know how else to describe it. Do you guys think that that's a decent way to describe this?
I think so.
It's freaking bombs are going off.
Through, right?
Yeah. So anyway, so that's kind of how I wanted to start. It's just like, that's kind of how I picture this thing. And I do think it's worth it, but it definitely has special trials and tribulations and special rewards when compared to other things. And then I think from there, we talk a lot about identity and who are you in this journey? So I was trying to think of different categories, for lack of better terms, of like the role of a wife in this situation. So I think broadly speaking, there are three major roles. There's the CEO wife, like you are the one that had the vision and you are running the company. And you are the one projecting forward and you have your support system is your husband. Then I think there's a partnership wife where like you're doing it together. You each have roles inside the company. And that can be, either CEO, COO, or whatever leadership role either one of you may have, your partners in it. And then I think the wife is a support system. The third category, like you are the support system to your husband, who may be the entrepreneur. And I kind of want to sit here for a second and talk to you girls about what you think about those different types of roles, because I think each one really is very pertinent in the entrepreneurial journey, but each one has different, I think, stressors. So maybe we can start with, I'm pulling up my notes here. I have my notepad.
I like that actually a lot. I think that the CEO role and the support system, I think that's how a marriage is like. I think it's either or actually. Like you either have this partnership where it's more 50-50, or you have this relationship where it's the CEO and the support, whether that's the woman or the man. Because I think in your business, it's much more partners, right? Mm-hmm. And in my business, I ran mine, and it was so funny because people would always be like, "So you and your husband rehab houses?" And I'm like, "No,
yeah,
he does his own thing." They're like, "Oh, but he does the work." And I'm like, "No."
Yeah. So like, let's
mental support.
And I feel like Melissa, you've done both, like partnership and the CEO role, right?
I was going to say, I love that you said that because I think it's right on. And I feel like I've been kind of in all three, actually. I mean, even though initially, like when we first got started, I was a part of it. We did start it together as a partnership, but because it wasn't like my life dream to, flip houses, it was cool, everything, but like, I really didn't know what I wanted to do at that time when we first started. So I felt like even though I was a part of it, I was more of a supporting role, which, gradually turned into more of a partnership role, which in the end ended up, splitting off and me being more in a CEO role, and each doing our own things. So that transition through all that, there was definitely a transition there. And then just like how that affected our relationship too, because it does, depending on what role you're in, it's going to definitely play a part in your relationship.
Yeah. Can't wait to get into those nitty-gritty stories.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of little pockets there depending on where your role really is, So I feel like I can probably speak most to the partnership role, which, I mean, I will be like super honest and transparent. Like it's hard for me to be led. Like I feel like I am just jump forward, you know, I wouldn't trust just anybody to lead me, if that makes sense. Like I have like I don't know. That's been very difficult. And I think that's been one of the, almost like not a sticking point, but like that becomes a point of like some sort of conflict in our marriage, is like, who's leading the way, you know? Because we both really see each other as equals, and he has strengths, I have strengths, he has weaknesses, I have weaknesses. And for the most part, they offset, but somehow there's like a gender role thing in here that happens. And I also have to allow him to lead, if that makes sense. Even though we're partners, even though there's a lot of respect, like I'm the one who has to be like, okay, I'll shut up a second. You're, you know, I have to like do that. And then sometimes depending on my mood, like that really pisses me off, you know, like, why should I secede? Why shouldn't I? Blah, blah, blah. But the reality is like somebody has to be in charge, right? Like, even though you're equal, like somebody has to be in charge. You can't have all these people in charge. And you can, you know, relate that to like children, even like there has to be one message, right? Even if there's different opinions, there has to be one message, and somebody has to lead the message. And that's been something that I've struggled with.
I was going to ask you, why do you feel the need to secede?
I don't really know, but probably because somebody needs to be in charge. I think it's okay for two people to be in charge, right? But like there has to be one message delivered and one way. Like, you can't move two ways at the same time. And I have my own perspective, and Zach has his own perspective, and we can collaborate on the opinion and the ideas, but then one has to be chosen. And usually there's a compromise, right? And sometimes the compromise is in my favor, and sometimes it's in his favor. But I think it like just dives down even like deeper than just that. It's somebody has to give in to the other to make a compromise, right?
Do you think that Zach ever feels the same way? Like,
absolutely.
Like he's like, no, why do I have to give on this one? It's not
absolutely
always you giving.
I can see him saying that too.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Well, for me, ladies, I'm more on the partnership and then support system side, because I've said before, like, especially with everything that happened with COVID, like Jason and I had this conversation years ago when we first started getting into real estate and forming this partnership together, which we do. But we knew that if anything happened financially, whatever, I would go family and he would go business. So COVID happened, and all of a sudden we just did this like split. And for the first couple of weeks, I like totally focused on family, made sure the kids were like set, and I would jump into business from every so often. And he did the same. He handled the business. It was great for the first couple of weeks. He didn't have to read any emails. Awesome. But then now we're back to being a partnership, and not being like deep into the business for those first couple of weeks that COVID happened kind of sent me in a little bit of a tailspin. I'm not gonna lie, because I was like, it wasn't like the act of giving up the power. It was just so different. Just only being with the family and taking care of my children, and that became my main goal, which is an amazing goal. But it clued me into like just the importance of being there for the kids, and how maybe we weren't giving them enough attention because we were so focused on the business together. Does that make sense?
100%.
Yeah, I feel that way right now. Today, actually, I was working all morning. I got up, I worked at like 6, and Matt's working his job. I mean, we're not like partners in our businesses. We're both entrepreneurs. I walked in at lunch. I had lunch. My daughter's like, can you make food? And I'm like, sure, mac and cheese. And
peanut butter sandwiches.
Yeah, and they were like, they're so sweet. And I thought, man, the rest of my day is going to be me working out in my office, getting mad if they come out and, you know, visit me, or Matt will feel the same way because we both have businesses to run. And then tonight, what are we going to do? Like, I'm going to be burnt down. I'm going to want some me time. I'll probably go weed my garden. And at that point, they're like done because they've played all day. And they're like, I just want to watch TV. And I'm like, you can't watch TV. Anyway, total tangent. Sorry. That's how I'm feeling in our house with marriage and COVID.
Well, see, that's the thing with
So true.
Jason. We like have to find that balance though. Like, how do you balance, especially in this time, how do you balance the me time? How do you balance the marriage? How do you balance this, like you said, battlefield that we're all in? How do you compromise? When do you compromise? It's all those things. And I think it all stems to communication, especially with your children. Like, for instance, they had to go take naps because mommy had to come here and daddy needed to be there for their nap time. So they were like, mommy, can you just lay down with us? I was like, no, mommy has to go work right now.
Oh, and then did you immediately do that like self-guilt reflection where you're like,
Yes, the
I'm
mom
gonna grow up and they won't ask me to lay down with them anymore, and I don't want to lay down right now.
Exactly. And then to your point where you're just like, at the end of the day, you just want your me time and you don't want babies to like touch you, unfortunately. And my daughter came up to me, she was like, mommy, huggy. And she tripped me. And of course you have that momentary, like, oh my goodness, I could get angry right now. But then all she wants is a hug. So
Yeah. Now we're straying into motherhood. When do we hit that?
Okay, so let's stop talking about motherhood. Let's go back to marriage. Sorry.
So I'm curious about.
No, I mean it's all intermingled.
I think I'd like to hear a little bit about like the challenges, like personally for each of you guys. The what are the things that like you guys fight about or you fought about in each of these things, and have you figured out how not to?
Yeah, why is it a battle? I was about to say battleship.
I think
battlefield.
I know, right?
B12.
Because we're conquering crap. That's why. Because we're going places. So, I mean, I think the main points of conflict really for me and like the partnership role really centers around boundaries. Like, where is the separation between personal life and business? Because we're all there, we're all in, right? And we're actively involved in decision making in the company. So having a boundary between that always comes up. Like, it's never really defined enough. Like, we do our best, but that always comes up all the time. Priorities is another one. Like, we're both working, we're both involved in the business. So the priorities of family always seems like it's counterweighted. Like, it's never quite where we want it to be with how we balance within our family, and how we set up our priorities that way. And then, balance, right? So it's like priorities and balance come back and forth. So for me, it's really boundaries, priorities, and balance are always the things that we're talking about and struggling with.
Do you have a recent example?
I mean, boundaries all the time. Like, it'll be late at night and we're trying to watch a movie and then we get off into a tangent about talking about something from work or, an employee, or what do we do about this? And, oh, I'll do that. Or Zach's struggling with his workload. And I'm like, well, I'll do it, and then he's like, no, you're not supposed to do it. You have too much stuff, and so we'll go, that comes up a lot. Or I'll say, like, I can't sleep yet because I have so many other things to do, blah, blah, blah. And then I may get a little mad that I'm doing it. I'm like, why don't you do it?
Isn't it funny that we, theoretically, it's just that an entrepreneur is the only person who will work 80 hours to avoid working 40. Like, we did this to kind of get off this hamster wheel. And yet, I mean, every entrepreneur I talk to feels like they're on a hamster wheel still. Like, there's just never enough hours, too much to do. We do it to ourselves. Mm-hmm. We're the boss.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we could start talking about leveraging people and all that. But like, it sounds like because Jason and Jason does this a lot, will leverage each other because we don't have, especially right now, we don't have anybody really like in our faces. We don't have an assistant that's sitting next to us to be like, can you do this now? And like Jason actually had to learn, and I had to learn how each other thinks. So he now knows if I am working on something, if you take me away from what I'm working on, I will not only like get a little angry, I will totally lose track of everything I'm doing. I won't be able to concentrate on what he's just asked me to do or what he's talking about. And I won't be able to like really dive back into what I'm doing. Like, I am like a classic, I cannot multitask type of person. Although I used to pride myself on it. I don't know how I prided myself on my multitasking skills because I can't. So, I mean, it just comes down to it. Like, between you and your husband or your partner, like how do you guys like react to things like that? I cannot multitask. So he knows that if I'm deep into something, he has to go, Peely, this is important. And I will go, okay. And I'll turn off whatever I'm doing and I'll focus totally on him. And that's just, we had to learn how to do that. So what's some like tips and tricks that we can like give each other or to our listeners? Like, how do you improve that communication so you don't have, and we do when we have those like little miscommunications with our husbands,
Never.
and M comes out and we can't help ourselves but get like a little angry.
Yeah, and I think by like not communicating, that builds resentment too, especially like I know for me, like I'd be doing a lot of things and eventually I got this like little bit of resentment inside because it's like, man, like I'm doing all this stuff, I'm working my butt off and I'm trying to grow this thing. But then I'm also like pretty much responsible for the kids and I'm responsible for running the house and like all these other things. And, because of how we are, like, we don't want to ask for help. We want to pretend like we can do everything all the time. And I don't know, like that's an expectation that we put on ourselves, I think, yes. But it puts a burden on our relationships too when we do that. And that was a big stress point. And I think in our relationship was just, me allowing myself to be like that, to just be like this martyr person. And like,
that's a great word.
That's that's what it is. It's like a martyr thing. And it's like, why do I do that to myself? I'm doing it to myself, but it put a stress, I think, on our relationship because, communication starts to break down and resentments build up. And, you sometimes, you could get to a point where you just like, it just starts breaking down, and then that becomes a real issue. So,
well, like Zach, Melissa, you're the only person now whose house I haven't been to. So we have to make that happen. I was at Stephanie's house last weekend, and Zach said something really interesting, which was something to the effect of like, things happen slowly, like it's a slow fade. I think that's what he said.
I was going to say that too. You know how many times he said that?
That's true.
Yeah, and I can see it too. Even in, I really understood. I think I said this to Zach, like I understand why they call it the 7-year itch, like after people get married, because they tend to have small kids demanding their attention all the time. And then like you said, your focus becomes somewhere else, right? And the things start to fade away and you lose that connection. And it is that slow fade. Like one day you just wake up and you're like, man, I'm super resentful and angry. And this person, like, they don't even try. Like, why should I try? I guess I'd be curious to hear from you guys. Like, how do you address that? Like I told you guys, like, I've looked into like couples retreats and stuff, not for marriage, but the only stuff I found. Hey, listeners, if you have something, please share it with me. Only stuff I found is for like marriages that are in like really bad straits, right? But like, what about if you just want to go, if you're feeling like maybe you're slow fading and you just want to reconnect, like, how do you do that?
I actually read a book. You guys all know The Miracle Morning, right? Yeah. So Hal Elrod has actually a miracle morning for couples.
They would not do that.
Oh, no. The thing is, the thing that's so poignant in the book, and I won't tell you all about the book, but the thing that I caught on is that it starts with you, because as much as we want to, ladies, we can't really change our husbands. We try, but it's
no, I don't want to actually.
No, we shouldn't want to change anybody.
Exactly. But so many ladies out there, gentlemen, we want to try and change people. We want to change the other person to be more what we want them to be. So the only thing we can do, and this is with life in general, is change ourselves. What do we need to do to improve our situation? What do we need to do to, maybe we need to try and start making the other person happy. if that makes sense. So in the book, the couple that Hal Elrod brings into the book, I forgot their name. Sorry if you ever watch this. But
Wow,
it says
we love you.
We love you. It says at some point that the wife was basically like, the husband was going to leave her. She had a breakdown, and she ended up taking the steps that she needed to take, where she went to the couples retreats. She read the books. She made the effort, and not only to improve their lives together, but to improve herself, if that makes sense. And he saw that and joined in and realized kind of what he was doing and what she was doing. And then they finally got to communicate. I'm really, really explaining it really badly, but it comes down to, what can I do? Because but the thing is, if you come to the point where I can't do anything, then that's a serious conversation that you're going to have with yourself. But if there's stuff that you can do to go that extra mile, then
This is like the second time I've had this conversation today. I must need some self-work. The universe is sending it to me.
Hal Elrod, Miracle Morning for Couples.
I haven't read that one. I'm going to read that.
And it doesn't mean that your husband needs to do the Miracle Morning. It just means it's jumping in and improving yourself. And thus improving yourself, you improve your relationship.
Which is true. I mean, that we can only control ourselves. And, I'm sure you've all read the quote, we can only can't control everything outside, only how we react to something.
Yeah.
So I think everything starts with us. But I'm glad that you said that, Peely, because I was just thinking my daughter got married in last October.
Yay.
And I had the privilege of marrying them, which was so super cool. So I was like a deputy for a day, I felt really cool, badass, whatever. But so I had to write their vows and just to be vulnerable for a minute. That was really, really hard for me, because that was things in my marriage were not good at all. And here I was trying to craft, what can I tell my daughter? What can I say to her that is going to help her avoid this pain that I'm going through right now? And when you're sitting there thinking about that, and you're thinking about I just remember being on the airplane trying to write all this stuff, and I was crying quietly in my seat as I was typing, because I was so overwhelmed with just all the feelings of the marriage and the difficulties, and then trying to put a good message to my daughter based on what I had been through and what I had learned. Not that, it wasn't about me, but it was just a gift to her, kind of a gift for their marriage. This is the gift of my knowledge that I have, and if you use it, it's fine. If not, but anyway, all that to say, I had found this little reading, and I put some of that into their wedding. And it was talking about how, marriage, you should never give up who you are in the marriage. And I feel that's something that happened with us. We just I gave myself up completely in the marriage and just lost totally who I was, and so my big takeaway for her was just don't lose yourself, be you, and you have to take care of you in order to take care of your relationship. Just like you said, Peely, because we can't control the relationship as a whole, but we can control ourselves. And,
it kind of, it reminds me of Peely, we were talking about, you got some negative comments, right? You basically got trolled on social media. Mm-hmm. And one of the conversations we had about it was when you're not in a good space, you can't handle the adversity and the struggle. And so to Melissa, if you don't take care of yourself and maintain kind of the core of who you are, then it makes it harder to be able to have that dynamic, right? That balanced relationship, whether you're the CEO role or the partnership.
Well, if you lose yourself, which, I've been in types of relationships where that has happened, then you also, I mean, it's as much as you want to blame the other person, you can't, because it's the choice you made. As much as we want to blame the other person, you made that choice. You made that choice to stay. You made that choice to lose yourself. So how can we make the choice not to make sure that we are true to ourselves and true to our marriage, true to the person that we decide to be partners with? Because once that breaks down, I mean, it's hard to wrangle it back, because you have to, because at that point you've lost yourself, so you have to do self-improvement work, and now you have to improve that communication that you've lost.
Well, and to go back to the slow fade idea, I mean, at some point you start fading, right? And you just get tired, and it's just easier to, sure, whatever, let's do that thing. So I guess, I'd love to hear, Melissa and Stephanie too, from you. If any of you guys, has there been a time in your marriage where you can't have come back from something like that? Like you had a moment of realization and fought to bring it back?
I have, for sure.
Yeah. There were times, there was a lot of moments of talk to me, let's talk, let's figure this out. And when the communication is only on one side, there's only so much you can do. And so having those conversations over and over again that don't ever go anywhere, I guess that causes you to stop and say, okay, well, what now? But I think a lot of it too starts in self-awareness and just being aware when those things are happening, and, communication.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. And there was a point, I'm trying to think, maybe three years ago or so, that I didn't think that Zach and I were going to make it. And I was shocked into that statement. I was always like, well, everything's always going to be fine. We're always just going to be married. Nothing's a big deal. We're always, we've committed to this. And then but we had lots of little tiny moments where I think that we didn't choose each other in that moment. And I think all those things add up. And then all of a sudden, you find yourselves on a different mountaintop looking at each other wait a minute, how the hell did you get way over there? That wasn't supposed to happen. And I didn't even realize that it was happening until Zach pointed it out. He's like, he's like, you have done this for years. Put me second, put whatever second, you've been in your own little world. I'm like, no, I haven't. But I totally did. And I think that this, this business and entrepreneurship and marriage in general, right? I think what's special about the entrepreneurial world is that there's this hyper awareness, right? There's always training. We're going to these things. I know all these things that I need to do. I've taken the personality test. I've done all these things. And there's a hyper awareness, I think, also in your marriage and from your own internal team and your home front team. But for some reason, that gets put way down on the to-do list. Oh, it's okay. That'll be fine because he loves me and I love him. It'll be fine, right? That doesn't have to come first. This has to wait so we can do X, Y, Z. And it's a horrible thing to do. It's an absolutely outrageous thing to do. And I think those are little moments. They're not big giant moments where I'm not choosing you right now. It's things okay, all right, give me 10 more minutes. Let me just over years, and where those things add up. And yes, I think that you losing yourself and keeping a pulse on your own identity is a big part of that. And I think that you have to have that right. But I also think that you need to be hyper aware of how you affect the other person, right? They affect you. So of course you're going to affect them. And I read this book called The Power of a Woman's Words. It's a Christian book. So it talks a lot about there's a lot of Bible verses in there and ties all that in. And it's so powerful because you as an individual and you as a woman are your own entity, right? And you need to take care of yourself, but it also looks at the light of like, you are also a huge force in your partner's life. And everything that you say and do has a giant impact on them too. And you need to take responsibility for your impact in other people. And it kind of like flipped this like switch for me too, because I had this assumption like it's all going to be okay, right? It's always going to be okay because we love each other. And I didn't think about how I can positively influence him, which then would positively influence our relationship. So that was a really good book to read. It's The Power of a Woman's Word by Sharon James. It's really good. And there's like a little workbook that you can take to where you can like dive in. I think they have like a couples study you can do with that book. It's really good. I really like that. I think another thing that was important too, that kind of talks about like yourself and your effect on the relationship is the 5 love languages. Like we receive love a certain way, but it's not always about how we receive love. It's also how we give love and the other person understanding how we give and receive, right? And like getting on the same page with that. And it's important to like know for them to know how you receive love, and we need to do self-love. And like for example, my love language is quality time. So I need time, me time. Like that's important for me to have like a little bit of me time to reset, so I have something to give. And then it's also really important for Zach to give me time and us to have time together. Like, and it doesn't take much. And that's what I've noticed too over the years. Like, if we are feeling disconnected for like 3 days, like I feel the resentment build. I'm like, what the hell? Here I am, like that. But then it only takes like a moment. Like if we sit together in the morning and like have a cup of coffee, like I'm good for like a week. Like it doesn't take much then to get you back on track, but it's that slow fade. Like you got to like bring it back in,
For me, the big takeaway from the 5 love languages was actually that you show love in the way that you want to receive love.
Mm-hmm.
And all the time I'm like, I do things and I'm like, why doesn't he like that I made lunch for him? And I'm like,
right.
Because I want him to make lunch for me. But Matt, if you're watching, I would like lunch.
So what are do you 3 know what your love languages are? I would love to hear them.
I was just going to ask, what's everybody else's love language?
I think mine's acts of service.
Hence the lunch. Yeah.
Mine's quality time.
Quality time. How about you, Peely?
I honestly don't know. I haven't.
You have to take the quiz.
No.
You have homework before next week.
I have homework.
Next week, you're going to report back to us on your love language.
I'm making that note. Yeah.
So, okay. Vice versa. You guys know me. What do you think my love language is?
Words
of affirmation.
Okay, I'm gonna go look that up. You guys are probably.
But now I don't want to. Like now, you have to take that out of your brain and take the quiz. Like, don't forget that. But I would be surprised if it's not.
Yeah.
Actually, I think words of affirmation was my second one. It was real close to quality time.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, Peely. When you take it, they like rank them.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Wait.
Quality time is my second. So
one of you needs to send me the link of this test that I need to take now.
Okay, yeah. It's a free test. It's cool.
Yeah, it's free.
When we finally get this mission trip going with Zachary Batters, he and I will get to have quality time and acts of service together.
It's like, woo! So much love.
My bucket is going to be so full.
That's funny. They love
so
cake.
We have 5 minutes. How do we want to end our show today?
I was thinking about that. I want to ask each one of you what your biggest lesson learned has been in marriage and entrepreneurship. It's a big one. Okay, I'll go. Oh, yeah. I was going to say, I'll go first if you guys need to think about it.
Yeah, go first.
So mine has been to pace yourself, and that there's never a graduation moment. Like you're not gonna like achieve it and be like, woo, we're done. Like now we can chill. And this is like a years and years long thing. And I think if you sacrifice too much of your personal life, which is, I think, easy for us to do. We're women, we're givers, we're mothers. Like, that's just kind of ends up what happening. Like, you can't sacrifice yourself, right? But in our mind, it's a sprint, and we're going to get there, and there's going to be the graduation, and then we'll make it, and then we can relax, right? That's, well, at least for me, that's been the thing. And I think academically, like I've just gone to school, and then you achieve it, and you get your degree, and then everything's great. Like, it's all worth it because then you get your degree. But I don't think that happens here. And we're not climbing a corporate ladder because we're building the ladder, right? So you're never going to get there.
Yeah.
So
you're just going to keep building a higher ladder.
Exactly right. So that's been a big lesson. I think I've got to learn. I still have to tell myself this too. So I'm still learning along the way, but I've definitely been hit in the face with it enough that it's like, it's okay to end your day. Be like, all right. Well, I have a coffee mug. I should have grabbed it, but I'm going to mess up the quote, but it says, like, sometimes courage doesn't always roar. It's the ability to be like, I'm going to just try again tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So you may not get all the things to do done today. And that does, so if you need to go have dinner with your family, shut it down, let your children interrupt you for a hug, like, and don't get pissed because they're hugging you and you're in the middle of a thought. Like, and I get that way too. Just pace yourself, and one thing at a time, and you'll get there. Don't self-sacrifice, sabotage.
I think that rolls into kind of what mine is, which is that in our world, I think we celebrate extroverts a lot, and they get all the glory. And for a long time, still, right? Like, I felt I think I'm pretty selfish in my marriage. I'm very giving, but I'm also, like, Matt is the more selfless one in this marriage. And it took me a long time to realize how much I needed his balance. Like, I need his balance, and to recognize that the things that bring him joy, there's like beauty, greatness in the moments, right? So, like, I would plan things all the time. Like, every day of the week, every weekend, we would be doing stuff. And it took me a long time. It was just a couple years ago. We've been together for 20 years. Like, 3 or 4 years ago, I realized he needs a weekend home with no people, just to do his stuff. And so I started, like, scheduling that into our calendar. And then I realized, like, I actually need a weekend home. Like, it's good for me too. So that balance, and I think in work as well. And Stephanie, I love that there's no graduation. Like, man, there's always something else to do. Stop burning out.
I love both what both of you ladies said. I mean, for me, it's to take a breath and think before I react. Because Jason and I, we are in a lot of, we complete each other, to use that overused phrase, but it's true, because he's more the risk taker. I'm more of the, okay, let's solidify and build the foundation before we start adding things to the building. So I have to realize that his mind will go at 100 miles an hour, especially in real estate, or like when we're both working on something. He's like, Peely, I have all these ideas. I have to remember to, like, be like, because remember what I said, if I'm working on something and I get interrupted, all of a sudden I'll be like, what? Okay, wait, I have to, like, rearrange the things in my head. But I have to remind myself that and I think it just has to do with, like, stuff in my past. If I, like, take the defense on anything and everything, then I'm not going to be able to share in the joy that are all of his amazing ideas. I'm not going to be able to share in the joy that he's not trying to, like, take me away from what I'm doing. He just has this amazing idea, and I'm his wife, and he wants to share it with me. It doesn't mean that I have to, like, I automatically have, in our relationship, well, I'm the implementer. So when he tells me stuff, I all of a sudden I'm like, okay, how am I going to, okay, I'm already listing the things in my head, like how to get this done, how to do this, how to add it to everything else that we're doing. And I have to remember that that's not always the case. I don't have to implement everything.
Amen, sister.
It can just wash over you and go away. He'll forget about those visions anyway. Tomorrow he'll have new ones.
Because I feel bad, because sometimes, like, especially if my cup's not full, and he has, like, this amazing idea, and all of a sudden I'm just like, oh, it's something else that I have to do.
Peely, I hide from Zach. Like, I legit go in the bathroom and, like, shut the door and just sit on the toilet. Just, like, sit there, but, like, he can't come in here.
Is he gone yet?
So
Like, wait till he passes.
Well, Jason has to physically be like, Peely, this is not something that you have to do right now. He has to like take my shoulders and release my back. And he knows that this reaction has nothing to do with him, and it has all to do with like stuff that I have to just like release. But and him knowing that I want to cry about it. But it's just, again, I'm gonna keep on talking about it. Just listen. That's all you need to do sometimes, is just listen to your partner and let it come and go.
I like that.
Good one. Yeah.
Melissa?
What about you, Melissa?
Oh, I'm up. There's so many things I could say about this. But I think for me, like the biggest thing is communication. And I didn't realize for a long time how important that was. I thought I was communicating, but now I know that I probably was not communicating enough and about the right things also. Because I think a lot of times, especially when you're in a relationship for a long time, we were together for 16 years, and you just start making a lot of assumptions, right? Things. And then you stop communicating because you're just like, oh, well, I know what he's going to say about that, and so you just don't anymore. And I think that that's major. That can lead to some major problems. And when you stop communicating, even if you don't think it's important, I still think it's important to communicate, because if something's, if you're carrying something around with you and you don't say anything, well, how's the other person ever going to know?
Right.
So you have to be willing to communicate. And I think too, like you said, Keely, is you have to be willing to listen too. So your partner has to be willing to communicate also, and you have to be willing to listen, and vice versa, which I guess is communication. It's the speaking and the listening, right? It's
sending and receiving.
Yes,
someone once told me.
It's true, and it's both. It's both sides, And so while I felt like I was communicating a lot, there wasn't a lot of communication back to me, and then there wasn't a lot of listening going on either, I think, on both sides. So, I think that that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned, is just to open my mouth and say something when something's bothering me. Quit holding it in and quit letting that resentment build up, and just speak it out, get it out there. So that way you can talk about it. Because if you don't, like you said, you're holding on to that thing and you're carrying it around, and it becomes toxic.
Yeah.
Inside of you. But I wanted to say something like really fast too. This is not that, but because it was bugging me about my daughter's vowel thing, and I really wanted to find that quote. So I wanted to just read it real fast, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I think it's
a perfect way to end this, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna try not to cry, because I cried whenever I did this in person. But just this paragraph, a strong marriage also nurtures each of you as separate individuals and allows you to maintain your unique identity and grow in your own way through the years ahead. It is a safe haven for each of you to become your best self. And I just think that that's everything.
That's perfect.
That is perfect.
Perfect.
It's very good.
Since you said the most perfect thing, why don't you take us out?
Me?
You.
I don't know. I don't have anything else to add. How can I do that? I wish I wrote that. I really do, because I really believe that. And I think it just sums up everything that we talked about, and just love each other, right?
In the moment. What did you say? Choose each other in the moment, Stephanie. I wrote that down. I love it.
All the small moments. Yeah. I agree.
And I think it's always not like those big moments too, right? We have to recognize and appreciate those and be present in those moments, be in that moment when your husband is there, and he's loving on you, and maybe he's aggravating you because you're trying to do something else, but, just
yeah,
see it for what it is. He's, giving you affection, and just appreciate and just really be in that moment.
Yeah. All right. Well, who's next, Miss Peely?
So who's next? I believe that's Miss Melissa.
Ooh.
Next, she will be talking about motherhood, and super excited for that next week, Thursday. So again, everyone that's here, everyone that's listened, everyone that I hope you guys all got so much value. I know I did. I love these ladies. they're my sisters. They're my entrepreneurial sisters. They're people that I can go to every day, no matter what. And I hope you all are creating that tribe for yourself. And if not, start with us. So Melissa, why don't you say goodbye to everybody, and then we will sign off.
Well, thank you, everybody, and see you next week.
Next week.
Next week.
Next week.
This is more. Bye, everyone.
Bye.